The Nutrition with Judy podcast is celebrating 300 episodes today. And in celebration, I wanted to share why I left my six-figure management consulting job. Hey guys, my name is Judy Cho and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. And I have a private practice where we have served over 2,000 clients and patients get to root cause healing. And it often starts with our Carnivorecure's all meat elimination diet. I can't believe we've recorded over 300 podcast episodes sharing about holistic health, the carnivore diet, and elimination diet, and getting to root cause healing, which often takes mind body work and many other levers and tools and modalities for every individualized person. Because we are all different. Our journeys are so different into why we may be suffering from illness or some type of chronic illness. And in this episode, I really just wanted to talk about how I ended up becoming Nutrition with Judy. And I think sharing my backstory will really give you an idea of why I serve the way I do, who I am today, and why I'm even here. And I know the internet likes receipts, so I am going to recommend watching this on YouTube or on a video platform so you can see my receipts and everything I share. So I'll either share diplomas or I'll share other things so that you know that I'm not just making stuff up. So I actually graduated from UC Berkeley and I was initially a pre-med major. So I was in biology, chemistry, organic chemistry. And I think it was in organic chemistry that I realized that maybe this is not the path I wanted to take. You see, I always wanted to be a pediatrician. I will see if I can find the picture of me holding a teddy bear. At Berkeley, I was starting to suffer from an eating disorder. And it was at Berkeley, I also became plant-based. But the world started changing around me and I ended up going into management consulting. And so right out of college, I worked at LEK Consulting, Deloitte, I worked at KPMG or Bearing Point, and I also worked at Pro Systems, which then got acquired by Dell. Because I'm type A and I've always been a hard worker, in less than a few years, I started to make six figures. And so by the end of my career, I think I was in consulting or management consulting for over 12 years. By the time I left PwC or PricewaterhouseCoopers as a management consultant, I was making over $180,000. And so for all the people that think I'm just doing this for money, it really isn't. I left management consulting not because I wanted to, but because I got really sick. I was plant-based for over 10 years at that point. I was traveling all over the world and we had per diems where we were able to charge whatever we wanted. And it was a cush life, but it was the darkest I ever felt. My plant-based diet was not helping me whatsoever. When I got back to the hotel, I was using eating disorder behaviors and I was depressed as you can ever imagine. And it wasn't until I had my first child that a lot of this stuff came crashing down. So if you don't know my story, I'm going to make it super quick because I've mentioned it several times before, but I was plant-based for about 10, 12 years and I was eating fish occasionally, but mostly I was vegetarian. And I was eating that way for all of my consultant life. When I got married, my husband learned of my eating disorder and we tried to do therapy and other modalities to get me better. But my traveling schedule with work and being alone at hotels really easily let me hide my eating disorder from everybody. The excuse of why I couldn't join a birthday party was because I was working. But in reality, it was because of my eating disorder. And this plagued my life for more than a decade. I was struggling and feeling desperation and feeling hopelessness and then feeling shame for the things I couldn't be or the ability to be stronger. I just ended up going through these shame spirals constantly. And it didn't come to a head until I had my first child. So I was still plant-based. Luckily, I had a pretty healthy pregnancy. Although during my OBGYN visits, they did say I was anemic. I should have thought that was weird because I was eating a pound of spinach daily, but they said that I needed more iron. And so I just got on iron supplementation. But it was when I had my first child that I got really sick. I ended up having mastitis. It's basically a infection when you are breastfeeding, and I had to get on antibiotics. I was still using eating disorder behaviors. I wasn't sleeping enough. I was more stressed than ever because I thought I could have a child and still do all the things I was doing before having a child. And everything came crashing down because I had this mental block. To this day, nobody knows what happened. They assume maybe it was a psychotic break. The psychiatrist at the facility said that I probably am just suffering from an eating disorder. That does not explain why you have a mental breakdown. But I was put in a hospital against my will. Some people call it a 5250, where basically you are put against your will because you are a concern to your own health, meaning that I had lost all freedoms and rights as a human being because they thought I was unsafe for myself. Fast forward time, I went through eating disorder facility care and very in-depth care where I was there for about 12 hours a day. And I was going through all these therapies to improve myself, which I think was really important, but I was still plant-based. And as much as I was trying to heal, I wasn't healing enough. And my brother ended up finding a keto diet. And to prove him wrong, I started doing the research while I was on disability for this break I had had. So I was still a management consultant and going down this rabbit hole of reading about keto diets, how a bulletproof coffee would cause you a heart attack, only to find that I was the one that was wrong. So I started this whole keto diet journey of trying to eat plant-based on a higher fat diet. And so I started adding olive oil and avocado oil and eating these big bowl salads, still being plant-based keto. And the part that I didn't share earlier was in the process of when I was in that hospital and they wanted me to go to long-term care, my son stayed back and was watched by my mom because I couldn't care for him while I was in there and he was only 6 months. So the fear of failing as a first-time mom came true to me. So I was separated from my son for a good month or so. And so I was the most dedicated student trying to get better so I could get him back. And fast forward time, as I said, I went through the keto diet. And again, I would always end up suffering again or struggling again. And it was in this moment where I was in the bathroom and Caleb was on the monitor and he got up and he was crying. And it was, do I finish what I'm doing or do I pick up my son who's crying for me in the middle of the night? And I chose my eating disorder. And I remember crying and thinking, what kind of mom am I that I, even though through all this therapy, that I am choosing my disease over my son that needs me. And so I made him wait a few minutes. I'm really trying not to cry. And then I got him. And then this vicious cycle of I'm a bad mom. All I care about is this food, this addiction. And it wasn't until I was desperate enough. There was a seed that a friend planted and said, there's this crazy diet called the carnivore diet that people are doing online that are reversing these amazing illnesses. And so out of desperation, the next time around, I was so desperate that I'm like, I'm just going to try this. I don't care. If this can fix me, then I'm all in. And I was only going to do it for about a month. And so the very first time I ate meat, I felt really sick. I think it was more mental than anything, but afterward it was fine. And the amazing thing is just a week or two in, the physical desire where I couldn't control the need to go out and binge or the need to go out and turn to my eating disorder behaviors went away. The emotional side still was there where I wanted to turn to food for other things. And that's where I think you have to do work sometimes beyond carnivore to heal those reasons of why you turn to food. But the physical satiation of meat was absolving some of the symptoms I was struggling with. I still had to work on the emotional side, but it was such a lifesaver. It changed my life. And I was still on disability at this time. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I was kind of bored at home in a sense, like as I'm healing, what should I do with myself? And I would see all these keto graphics of all these food pyramids and what foods to eat and the nutrient density of things. And it's like, well, how come carnivore doesn't have any of these? And so truly out of my need to express myself and share ideas, I went under a name that wasn't actually Nutrition with Judy early on. It was just a pseudo name. And I started posting carnivore graphics. And I think it was Sean Baker that ended up sharing one of them. And then I had an influencer that had a pretty large account then asked me to share my story. And it was in that time that I had a conversation with my husband about, I really want to do this, but I'm on disability. Do I want to go back into consulting, or do I want to do this and become a nutritionist? And we thought, well, how much does a nutritionist make? Because we were never in the holistic health nutrition space. And we saw that the average person makes about 50,000. So that's very different from the 180 I used to make. And it was a hard decision because it's like, well, that's more money we could spend on our children if you chose your old job. And I came to the conclusion that this feels like my calling, this work, the duty that I'm supposed to do in this world. One of the gifts that God gave me was this ability to understand complex information and break it down and distill it into infographics to the point that you can understand and that you can remember it forever. And I still see our Carnivorecure graphics go viral even to this day, even though this book is probably 3 years old now. I loved consulting because I loved creating presentations and sharing with C-suite people and meeting all these different people and having interviews and traveling the world and experiencing so many different people in a short amount of time. I think that really actually helped me become good with interviews. But the work itself, the financial modeling, the showing the process improvements and creating using Visio and all of these things, it wasn't my passion. I was good at it. I was good at project management, but it wasn't my passion. But with nutrition and wanting to share truths and the things I learned about glyphosate and GMOs and how organic doesn't necessarily mean it's truly good for you or high quality, or that fiber isn't really good for you, and learning all these things and wanting to share it, that was my passion. And so even if the most we could ever make was 50, we were okay with that. And so I told Kevin that I'm going to start this Nutrition with Judy, and let's just try to get to 50. And if we get to 50 one day, I'll call it a win. And truth be told, I could have been on disability for the rest of my life. I was getting a decent amount of money from that, and I could have been a stay-at-home mom with that disability as long as I met with a psychiatrist. But instead, we turned in our papers and said, I'm healed. I'm not going to use disability. I'm not going to my psychiatrist anymore. And we are denying any governmental support. And I quit my job at the consulting firm. And I said, I'm all in. And I went to nutritional therapy school. Then I worked for a while, and then I got board certified. And I do this because I actually care, and because I now taste healing and freedom and what it feels like to have a purposeful life. And I just want that for you. And I believe that people can live a better life and choose to really heal in a root cause healing way, not band-aids, not temporary reliefs, so that you can live the life that you are meant to. And as I work with one-on-ones, I realize that people don't have always the miracle healing I did, where I just eat steak and over time, that plus a little Jesus fixes me. I know that more people have more trauma and triggers from the past that they need more healing. And since I am better now, I feel the most equipped to give those tools and give the guidance and recommendations because I am well now. And in my faith, it's if I'm well, I give back and I serve and I do the things because ultimately, selfishly, this fills my heart too. And it fills me with purpose and it fills me with joy. So yes, I do this because we need it for a living, but I didn't need this job or this Nutrition with Judy for a living because we had a pretty cush life before. But it is truly in my calling that now I do work that I love, tools that I learned during my consultant days of sharing presentations and bringing out the facts and streamlining it for it to make sense. All of those tools I can use now. And then instead of using my pre-med, I went psychology and communications with the minor in business. I use all of those tools to understand people. It is not just learning how much meat to eat or how much salt to intake or what hours to sleep, but truly it's, I'm going to hold your hand through your healing journey. And I'm going to let you know when you're falling back, and I'm going to call a spade, but I'm going to also be there to help lift you and guide you when you are lost. If you need a little bit more light, our practice is here to bring you that light. Because everyone, and what I've learned in hiring too, is everyone in our practice has their own healing journey. And if you don't have that healing journey, you don't have as much compassion and empathy to work with the chronically ill. So our practice has people that have been sick at one point in their life, and now they just want others to have that same healing. And that is why I left my management consultant job. Yes, it was a cush life. You can imagine the amount of travel I had because I have status at Hertz, on American, at Marriott for the rest of my life. And it was not worth it to keep that when I knew that I could serve better. The truth is that I got into Nutrition with Judy in I think it was my late 30s, mid 30s, but I tasted the money and I lived in Los Angeles my whole life. There were celebrities that went to my schools. So fame wasn't that cool for me. But growing up with that money and the fame, and then having my own money with the cush job I had, and then being able to stay at the most fanciest hotels, it's cool for a second. But if that's what you're chasing for a better life, what I can tell you is that doesn't give you a better life. Yes, we need the standards of living and a roof over our heads and good food and warmth. But beyond that, it is the community you have around you, the family that you build, the love that you have in your life, and the work that you do that brings you passion and fire and joy. And that is what brings a person fulfillment. I think personally for me, and yes, I do make more than 50,000 a year, but giving back and serving and using integrity and excellence as our baselines, these things have allowed actually me to heal and heal further. And now I've become an advocate where I want people to have my level of healing. And then as they do, to then give back, even if it's to your small community that you give back, but that you live a purposeful life, that you can then show your children or your grandchildren what life is meant to be. And this world is fallen. This world is hard. And for sure, there's a lot of that. But we can build character while we're here. And so even though I don't have that job and my husband and I don't get to travel like we used to, we have so much more fulfillment in the work we do, the way we serve, the way we give back, and the hope we instill in other people. I'm not saying that management consultants can't do that, but I also saw that the work was so hard and demanding that a lot of my management consultant peers, they did have a type of addiction or escape that they would turn to, whether it was alcohol, prescription drugs, food. But I now serve in a way that is so much more fulfilling to my soul. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Life is not about having so much money. And I know people could say, oh, you're privileged, and that's why you're saying that. I am not talking about having zero money. I'm saying whether you make 50 or 100, that difference, or maybe nowadays it's 100 and 150, but that difference is so nominal to your happiness, to your longevity. If you don't love what you do, you'll eventually hate it. And so all the people that are doing this for a paycheck, you cannot do this long term if it's a paycheck. You have to have that passion and love. And I think this goes for anything, even outside of social media. If you don't love your job, you can do it and consider it a paycheck. But then you have to find a hobby then that you love, that gives you purpose, that gives you a calling. And then maybe that can become your main job. I really believe that we have our gifts and talents that God has provided us with. And if we can figure out what that is, and as we use those then to make a life for us, we will feel more purpose. It has given me the gift to be able to serve people that are chronically ill, that may need a little bit of hope, that may need a little bit of encouragement to know that they can heal from their chronic illness. Because we are all about root cause healing, and we will always be foundationally driven by love, integrity, and service and excellence. In the upcoming seasons, we are going to change our practice because we are more of a functional medicine practice than we are just nutrition now. We will always use carnivore as a fundamental part of our practice as an elimination diet, but we also work with people with chronic Lyme and MCAS and Epstein-Barr and SIRS or mold illness. And so there's a lot of other things. And we even have our mind body program. So we are going to change our name to a functional medicine practice. And also, I don't like that this is like the Judy show, because it really isn't. We have a phenomenal team behind us that allows me to be here and serve and share. Carnivorecure version 2 will come out hopefully sooner than later. My practice keeps me very busy, but the version 2 will share more about chronic illness, environmental, the mind body, and other things. It is not that steak or meat isn't healing. It's that sometimes for some people, it's not just the diet that's the issue. It's not that carnivore isn't the answer. It's just that it might be carnivore plus a little more. Thank you so much for being part of the Nutrition with Judy community. I'm so excited for all that is to come. We are doing so much work behind the scenes in our practice. We're working on papers that we can end up publishing about carnivore, and we have so much data because we do blood work and functional tests in our practice that is specifically focused on a carnivore diet. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you can keep getting my content. And thank you so much. If you don't follow my newsletter, that is where I keep the most up-to-date information about our practice, about things I'm thinking about, musings, new research. If you are going through your own chronic illness health journey, or you are not sure what you want to do with your life, just know that all of these things are possible. When we have moments of dark, it is those moments that allow us to see and appreciate the light. And I urge you to have community when you are in the dark. We want to hide and be alone when we are in darkness or in depression, but it is in those moments that we need and we must reach out, because it is in those moments that people can bring you a little light and they can help you to get out of that funk. Just know that you can heal, you can live the life you want to, but it takes work, it takes effort. And trust me, I did not build this practice overnight. We work hard, we work long, and we put our heart and soul into it. And I am grateful that I decided to leave my management consultant job. As much as I loved my team members I worked with, this was my ultimate calling. And I hope that in some way, my messaging has benefited you and your families. Thank you for all your support. Happy 300 episodes. Okay, guys, make sure to eat a lot of meat. Take care of your bodies because it is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.